Hello and welcome to Cleveland Classic Cinema. Tonight's movie is 1955's The Desperate Hours, directed by William Wyler. When I think of home, I think of safety. I mean, home is where you do all of the things that you're completely vulnerable doing. Showering, sleeping, things like that. But you do them secure in the belief that since you're in your house, you're in your home, you're safe. This is a feeling anyone can completely relate to, and it's a universal thing. The saying, a man's home is his castle, refers to the fact that a home is a safe haven, a place of protection, a place of love and security, a place to come back to after a long journey. Now, imagine coming home from work one day and finding 3 armed and dangerous men holding your family hostage. Not just punks off the street, but hardened criminals, ones who wouldn't hesitate to put a bullet through your child's head if you didn't do everything they said to do. Now, don't just grimace and think, man, that'd suck. Think about everything that would entail. Your family held at gunpoint by men with no scruples and you being forced to go on with your life as if everything were normal. Being absolutely helpless to protect the ones you love in the face of this unpredictable danger with nowhere to turn without endangering your family even more. This is the kind of situation dealt with in tonight's movie. The Desperate Hours is based, loosely as usual, on a true story, a home invasion that took place in 1952 in Pennsylvania. According to the family that it happened to, they were treated very well by their captors, and, their captors were polite and thoughtful. That's a nice story, but it doesn't make for very good drama, so when the story was adapted first as a book, then as a stage play, and finally as a movie, dramatic liberties were taken with the story. Actually, you'd have a hard time finding any movie based on true events that hasn't been given a bit more oomph by the screenwriters. Real life can indeed be dramatic, but the drama comes out of the personal dangers faced by the individuals involved. So it's not always something everyone can relate to. I mean, that's the whole idea behind storytelling, to take something that's merely good and make it great, to make it exciting or funny or dramatic or heartbreaking, to make it entertaining. Well, they did a great job with this movie. Director William Wyler was born on July 1st, 1902 in Milhausen, Alsace, Germany. Nicknamed 40-Take Willie for the exhaustive amount of takes he would do until satisfied with a scene, his career spanned 45 years from the silent era up to the mid-1970s. He directed 70 films during his long career, was nominated 12 times for Best Director Oscars and won 3 for 1942's Mrs. Miniver, 1946's The Best Years of Our Lives, which is a great film, and 1959's Ben-Hur. He pioneered the use of deep focus cinematography while working with the legendary Greg Toland, later cinematographer for the classic Citizen Kane. He started his career at Universal Studios in 1922, being a first cousin to studio head Carl Laemmle, whose penchant for nepotism was well known in Hollywood. Starting out as an errand boy and working his way up to a director in the B-movie unit, making scores of low-budget westerns. His first A picture was 1933's Hell's Heroes, the first sound film to be shot on location rather than in a studio. After Universal went into receivership in 1932, Wyler went to work for independent producer Samuel Goldwyn, who was an atypical Hollywood producer, bullying his directors to rewrite, recut, and recast their films to his taste. For example, when Wyler finished 1939's Wuthering Heights, Goldwyn demanded that a final shot showing Heathcliff and Kathy as ghosts reunited as they walked towards the audience in presumably heaven. Wyler refused to shoot the scene and cut the film his way, but Goldwyn had the ending he wanted shot and tacked on to the end of the film. Wyler wasn't happy. William Wyler was famous for doing long takes, so his perfectionism got actors who worked with him angry. Instead of doing a pickup in the middle of a scene, they were forced to start it again from the beginning since there were no cutaways. This, coupled with his inability to give actors clear direction. On 1938's Jezebel, his only instruction after calling cut was, again. After doing 40 takes of one scene in the movie, actor Henry Fonda got understandably upset with the lack of input he was getting from Wilder concerning his acting, and finally asked what was wrong with his performance. Wyler looked at him and said, "It stinks. Do it again." When shooting Ben-Hur, he told Charlton Heston that his performance was inaccurate. When Heston asked what he could do to improve his performance, Wyler said, "Be better." Though inarticulate in his direction, he believed that forcing actors to do many takes eventually made them shed their preconceived ideas about acting, and in particular the character they were playing, so that their performance became pure, as he put it. William Wyler died of a heart attack on July 27, 1981 in Los Angeles, California. Humphrey Bogart was born Humphrey DeForest Bogart on December 25, 1899 in New York City. He appeared in 77 films over the course of his career, starting with 1928's The Dancing Town, and appeared in a few other films while doing mostly stage work. His big break came in 1936 when a stage play he had appeared in, The Petrified Forest, was made into a film. Edward G. Robinson was slated to play the part of Duke Mantee in the film, but co-star Leslie Howard threatened to quit the production if Bogart wasn't given the role. Howard had appeared in the Broadway production of the play opposite Bogart, who had originated the role, and he felt that no one else could play it as well. Howard had enough clout at the time to get his way, and the role made Bogart a star. Oddly, many of his best roles were ones that another star of the time, George Raft, had been offered but turned down, including the leads in High Sierra and The Maltese Falcon. There was one role, however, that Bogey didn't have to take as one of Raft's cast-offs. The role of Dr. Maurice Xavier in 1939's The Return of Dr. X. According to rumor, Bogart, who was then under contract to Warner's, was forced to do this movie as punishment for misbehaving or something. It was a mad scientist role, and to tell you the truth, Bogey's pretty good in it. Well, he's creepy at least, especially when he's talking about his rabbit. He started out studying medicine at Phillips University, and after being expelled, joined the U.S. Naval Reserve. In the early 1920s, he managed a stage company and worked behind the scenes in a New York film studio. After this, he began making regular stage appearances and landed a 2-year contract with 20th Century Fox before winning a long-term contract with Warner Brothers following the success of 1936's The Petrified Forest. He appeared in mostly minor roles in gangster films and twice in westerns. Bogart was a well-read, erudite man and knew a good part when he read one, snapping up the lead roles in 1941's High Sierra and The Maltese Falcon, and two of my personal favorites, 1942's Casablanca and 1948's Key Largo, among many others. In the 1950s, Bogart was one of the few actors brave enough to confront the House Un-American Activities Committee regarding the communist witch hunts of the 50s. Married 4 times, he finally found happiness with his last wife, Lauren Bacall, who he met on the set of 1944's To Have and Have Not, which gave the world the famous "If you want anything, just whistle" scene. Actually, that scene wasn't part of the original script. Director Howard Hawks wrote it as a screen test for Bacall. This was her first movie, and it went over so well that Hawks asked screenwriter William Faulkner to add it to the film. Humphrey Bogart died from throat cancer on January 14, 1957 in Los Angeles, California. Lauren Bacall put a small gold whistle in the casket with him. Frederick March was born Ernest Frederick McIntyre Bacall on August 30, 1897 in Racine, Wisconsin. He began his career as a banker, but in the 1920s found himself being cast as an extra in films being shot in New York. Bitten by the acting bug, he studied theater and began appearing on Broadway, eventually finding his way to Hollywood, where he appeared in his first featured role in 1929's The Dummy, and went on to appear and star in 84 films, winning Best Actor Oscars for 1931's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and 1946's The Best Years of Our Lives, in addition to taking home several Tony Awards for stage appearances in 1947's Years Ago and 1957's Long Day's Journey into Night. He died of prostate cancer on April 14, 1975 in Los Angeles, California. Arthur Kennedy was born John Arthur Kennedy on February 17, 1914 in Worcester, Massachusetts. He appeared in 99 movies and television shows throughout his career. He first achieved notoriety in the role of Biff in Elia Kazan's production of Arthur Miller's play The Death of a Salesman. After studying drama at the Carnegie Institute of Technology, he toured the Midwest with the Globe Theater Company, performing truncated versions of Shakespeare's plays, and was eventually hired by actor Maurice Evans to appear in his production of Richard II on Broadway. After moving to Hollywood in 1938, he was discovered by James Cagney and was cast in the role of the actor's brother in 1940's City for Conquest, gaining a contract with Warner's as well. He appeared in some prestigious movies, including 1941's High Sierra with Bogart, and They Died with Their Boots On with Errol Flynn. After a stint in the military during World War II, Kennedy returned to Broadway, establishing himself there as a major star, and went back to Hollywood to become one of the best supporting players in the business, being nominated 5 times for Best Supporting Actor and once for Best Actor. Arthur Kennedy died as a result of a brain tumor on January 5, 1990, in Brantford, Connecticut. Robert Middleton was born Samuel Messer on May 13, 1911, in Cincinnati, Ohio. He appeared in 105 movies and TV shows, usually playing a brutish thug or corrupt civic leader because of his hulking appearance. He had an excellent voice, starting his career in radio and from there moving on to television and film. Belying his appearance, he was a good-humored and kind man who loved playing practical jokes. His first film was 1954's The Silver Chalice, which coincidentally was the screen debut of Paul Newman, who played the role of Glenn Griffin in the stage play of tonight's movie. He excelled at playing thugs, as you'll see in this film tonight, but his performance is tempered with this odd childish delight that's evident when he's playing with the toys of one of his captives. He was adept at comedy as well, making several appearances on Jackie Gleason's TV show The Honeymooners as Ralph Cramden's boss, J.J. Marshall. Those of you who have seen the atomic scare film Duck and Cover will be surprised to learn that Middleton was the uncredited narrator of the short. Robert Middleton died of congestive heart failure on June 14, 1977 in Hollywood, California. Sharp-eyed viewers will recognize Alan Reed, the voice of Fred Flintstone, as one of the detectives in tonight's movie. To sum up, The Desperate Hours is a really good movie. The performances are wonderful, particularly that of Frederick March and Humphrey Bogart, playing 2 men at the exact opposite ends of the spectrum. March's Dan Hilliard is a typical 50s image of a suburban father whose children are edging into adulthood a little too quickly for his tastes. His daughter is dating a young man he doesn't approve of, and his young son, Ralphie, has reached the age where kissing Dad goodbye has become too babyish and insists on shaking hands instead. The boy still has an idealized view of his father, however, and can't understand why he won't do anything when their home is invaded. Griffin announces that they're staying in the home while awaiting a Confederate with money to ensure their getaway, and Ralphie sees the situation as a child would, in a black and white manner. Dad's a good guy, and the good guy always wins. Dan is wiser than that, however. He sees he's in a situation where Griffin holds all the cards, and all he can do is what he's told in order to protect his family. But you can see the anger and frustration he feels just under the surface. Unfortunately for him, so can Griffin, who possesses an animal cunning when it comes to such things. Clickety, clickety, click. I hear the wheels turning, he keeps reminding Hilliard. Hilliard is exactly the kind of man Griffin hates most and is always one step ahead of him. He actually enjoys terrorizing his family. His kid brother, Hal Griffin, is still young enough to regret following in the footsteps of older brother Glenn, whom he idolizes as much as Ralphie does his father. Add to this the sadistic, brutal Kobish, played by Middleton, who's chafing at taking orders and is more than willing to kill any or all members of the family. Complicating things even more is the character played by Arthur Kennedy, who plays the cop that originally arrested Griffin and saw him kill his partner in cold blood, even while knowing that his capture was inevitable. The two men hate each other and are determined to come out on top. Hilliard and his family are caught in the middle. Now, I'm not going to go into any more detail about the plot here. This movie is just too good to spoil. So right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy The Desperate Hours, right here on Cleveland Classic Cinema.